Ten Commandments is probably one of the most famous law codes that you have in the ancient Near East. The Ten Commandments, also known as the Decalogue, is a classic example of apodictic law. Apodictic law is absolute law. There are no exceptions given. There are no specific punishments expressed. It's not very helpful when you're wanting to actually use it to maintain order, because apodictic law doesn't prescribe anything. You shall not commit adultery. Well, what happens if I do? Well, you shall not. Okay, what happens if he does? You shall not commit adultery. Well, let's say there's this guy and he cheats on his wife. You shall not commit adultery. There's no answers given for specific situations. For that, you need casuistic law. Casuistic law, or case law, is a law that deals with specific issues. Of the 613, by some numbers, laws in the Old Testament, 603 of them are casuistic laws. Most of them deal with specific cases. If two men are fighting and one of them beats up the other one, how do we handle the restitution if the guy can't go to work? Or if someone does commit adultery, or if an ox escapes, what do you do to the ox? What do you do to the man who owned the ox, who didn't keep him? Those kinds of specific situations are dealt with on a case-by-case basis. Now, I've been using the term law a lot. Laws in ancient Israel are not the same thing as laws in 21st century America. Based on my observation, laws in 21st century America are things that you don't want to get caught breaking. It's apparently okay to break them as long as you're not caught breaking them, but most of the people that I hear. It's okay to speed as long as you're not caught speeding. It's okay to, that's why that's why people get so mad at those darn red light cameras. Why can't we run the red light if there's no policeman there? There's a sense of antagonism toward you and the law in 21st century America. Ancient Israel didn't think in those terms. Laws were not things you didn't want to get caught breaking. Laws were God's teaching. In fact, the word Torah is probably better translated teaching or instruction. These are God's instructions for life. And these instructions are not the way that you earn your grace. And this is an important difference, because I grew up in the church, and maybe like some of you, I always heard that in the Old Testament the Jews are under the law, in the New Testament we're under grace. In the Old Testament they had earned their salvation, and in the New Testament we receive it as a free gift. Then I read the Old Testament and made a startling discovery that probably shouldn't have been so startling, and that is that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Laws were not things that you didn't want to get caught breaking. Laws were the proper response to the grace that God has shown. Salvation comes by grace in the New Testament. Salvation comes by grace in the Old Testament. Christ has saved us, so now we must love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. Not to get salvation, but to show our salvation. Because we have been saved, we love. In the Old Testament, it happened the same way. You look at the very beginning of the Ten Commandments, and what do you see? God opens with, I am the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall have no other gods before me. In other words, those Ten Commandments come as a result of God saving them. Grace had come. They had been saved from captivity, liberated from the oppression of slavery in Egypt. Now that salvation had come for them, have no other gods before me. In other words, God is saying, I have now saved you to be my people. This is what my people look like. My people don't have other gods. My people actually don't make idols. My people honor the Sabbath day. My people don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't bear false witness. So the laws are the response to show that you're part of that covenant community. And there is grace in them. In fact, one of the laws that most people think of when they think of judgmental laws actually is a law of grace. Lex talionis, the law of retaliation. Is from Exodus chapter 21, verses 23 through 25. That's where we get that passage, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth, and a hand for a hand, and a foot for a foot. And normally, I think people read this as, see, I get to. So in other words, if someone pokes out your eye, you get to poke out theirs. If they cut off your hand, you get to cut off theirs. The reality is, lex talionis is a merciful law. Think about it in terms of even modern day. You have gang lords. If you walk up to a gang lord and you smack him in the face, what does that gang lord do to you? He's going to kill you. He's going to kill you. He's going to kill your family. He's going to burn your house to the ground. He has been shown dishonor, and he's going to bring vengeance. that is greater than yours. Lex talionis provides limits on the retaliation that people can have. You slap somebody in the face, the best that they can do is slap you back. They can only respond to the degree that they themselves have been wronged. It is a way of providing mercy. It is a way of providing control. There is a merciful quality to this prescription. It is not just I get to. Now, Jesus takes that merciful quality even further, where we are supposed to love our enemies and turn the other cheek and even deny ourselves what we would have a right, if you will, to respond with. So it is Jesus is always ruining the curve for us and setting the bar very, very high in the way in which we live. But at this point in the story, there is still that merciful quality of God, as he says, these are the kind of people that I have, the people whose lives are defined by justice, and we'll see that throughout the story.